For those of you who don't know, I am the immortal John Hancock. And I'm thankful for all the support. And this is my good friend Chris Trimiew of Lost Classics. So, anyways, I've been collecting a long time. And over the years, I've been successful with...
John's never seen this. This is from my collection. So
yes.
This is all new and horrifying to him as well.
So we're here to talk about some
game.
obscure consoles. I became friends with Chris 10 years ago.
Yeah, just about.
About 10. And you know, I grew up in near Redding, California. And when he became, so this is the TV episode. So real quick, we became friends over our love for all things of the 90s that were bizarre, and consoles, and sometimes, you know, there's the great games like Nintendo and Sega, and you know the older stuff like Atari, but you get into the real nasty 90s, and you get some really seriously bizarre stuff, and so. We're here to kind of talk about kind of more of the fringe 90s consoles. Now I know that I brought the Nuon. I know it's not the 90s, but it's so obscure.
Close enough.
It's so obscure that most people haven't even seen one. So we're here to talk about that as well and field some questions. And so this is going to be pretty informal. I want to show actual gameplay footage. We're doing the best we can. I had ideas of having the consoles up here and playing it and talking about it. It's not going to be that way, but we'll just go from there. So. Anyways, who's heard of the CDI? Philips CDI. All right.
I'm truly sorry for all of you.
So, what people don't know or may not know, or I don't know, CDI lost $1 billion trying to market it as a game system. It was a failed entertainment center. Think of this of trying to sell an expensive entertainment center that you really couldn't go online. You couldn't, you played these, you know, CD movies that looked terrible.
Yep.
And then it was really trying to embrace the full motion video later on with a separate digital video cartridge.
It's very underpowered.
Very
at
underpowered.
the time, too.
So a lot of it had like 16-bit gameplay with, you know, other types of, you know, full motion video, and it tried to be everything and it was nothing. And so this is the game. This is Thunder in Paradise.
Based off the hit TV show that I'm sure we're all aware of.
So this is, I do believe, the disc that...
No, this is the game disc.
This is the game disc. So the game is terrible. Who wants to see the game? Who's seen the game before? Oh, yes.
Really? Wow.
You got the controller? Okay, so if you got the controller over there, can you press get it to the game? If you can do that, Hans. I'm sorry.
That's been like ages
the game
ago.
is actually the last episode of the show that they filmed for the TV series. They knew they wanted to make a game out of it, so the show is intentionally very video gamey, that one episode is. And yeah, you can judge for yourself how it turned out.
It looks like a knockoff of Baywatch.
It is totally a knockoff.
Totally a knockoff of it.
Even has some of the cats.
Yes.
Wasn't the show a combination of knockoff of Baywatch and Knight Riders?
Yes, there's a boat that's supposed to be intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You remember Simpsons Night Boat? That's this.
So the other thing that's interesting is that CDI had a lot of different hardware. You know, they started off with what's the large one? A 200?
I think the 220.
220.
Something like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyways, large VCR-looking style box that's really heavy. That, you know, and then over the time, they had a hard time marketing as a game console. So over time, it evolved. They made different looking units. They got smaller and sleeker, to the point where at the very end of its life cycle, it started making hardware units that were essentially showcasing corporate training videos for like a company called like Wendy's and some other things. I found one of these corporate units in the garbage. Actually, I didn't. My friend Brian Lawhorn found it. in a recycled center and was able to salvage it and essentially give it to me for next to nothing, knowing it was going to my collection. And I'm very thankful for that. Thank you, Brian. So anyways, here's the gameplay. And so what are you doing here, Chris?
Well, it's a little more complicated than your standard light gun shooter. You're trying to shoot down the missiles and the boats, and you have to change your view to each side of your boat. You can also move within the radar screen, and you'll get special moves like there's an EMP and there's a homing missile, I believe. And this is just the first scene. There's 3 scenes in this game for you to enjoy. The next scene, you play as the goofiest looking kid ever with like what they call the Nintendo laser scope, that Konami thing strapped to your head.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got one of those.
Oh my god.
And you're running through, it kind of looks like a theme park, shooting guys, and then after that you go into a factory and you have to take out, I can't remember his name right now, Major something. He's got this god-awful metal mask on that is clearly just like taped on his face.
Very little budget for a lot of these games.
Yeah.
And this is just an example where they really didn't know what they were doing. They were losing money, and they were just trying desperately to get people interested. It's kind of like, I kind of mirror, there's a parallel between the mid-90s and what we're dealing with today. There's evolving technology, and the gameplay and the games haven't caught up with the technology. Sound familiar?
Yes.
So in the 90s it was full motion video, and now it might be virtual reality?
Yeah, the 90s I find.
How long do I have to do this?
No.
So you just keep right on going. Right there. So what I find really interesting about these, where there's this new technology and nobody really knew exactly how to use it, which is a double-edged sword because you had really creative things that you hadn't seen before, and then you had crap like this.
Yeah.
But personally, I find crap like this interesting because at least you can sit around with a couple beers and your friends and laugh at Hulk Hogan all day. I guess Hulk Hogan isn't now as funny as he was a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So when they first started, you had the joy of playing a CDI with this remote control style thing, and this is,
That is awful.
yeah, this is essentially like the precursor to the Wii controller, but it doesn't work. So I mean, and so if who's played some of the Zelda games? Any play the Zelda games? Okay. So I'm gonna take to save Hans from this tragedy. I have 4 games. I can show gameplay of. Okay. I have Zelda's Adventure.
We've all seen that.
I have Kether. Yeah, what? Okay, that gets my vote. I got Hotel Mario with the best intro ever. And Mutant Rampage Body Slam.
One of the best games.
So let's do vote. So Mutant Rampage Body Slam. Who wants to see this? Okay, couple hands.
Okay, about 10.
Hotel Mario. Zelda's Adventure.
Hotel Mario.
Hotel Mario.
We got to end on Video Speedway.
Okay. So this was remote. It didn't work. It was terrible. And then they evolved to this, which actually works well, and everybody wants, and it's more expensive now. Does it look like a controller you might have seen somewhere else? Yeah, very much like the Genesis 3-button controller. It's very comfortable.
Hard to get, too.
Hard to get,
I actually
too, yeah.
bought a system just because it came with the controller.
Right.
And the interesting thing is, you count 3 buttons, but it's really a 2-button controller. You only have button 1 and 2, and then button 3 is both buttons at the same time. And remember, this came out in 1993, so we were already used to controllers with more than 2 buttons at that time.
That sounds like there's another turbo controller as a concept for one shooter.
Correct.
Yeah.
PC Engine came out in '89, I believe, though. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure we'll get some comments on the internet. But yeah, you were really limited to the types of games that you could play on the CDI. We got a lot of the older Laserdisc games like Dragon's Lair and Space Ace and stuff, which is very good if you have the video cartridge.
So, yeah, so Hotel Mario, believe it or not, so everybody talks about the terrible Nintendo games on the CDI. So, I don't know about you, but like, I'm thinking of like a second grade coloring book. And it's just bad. It's bad. But the thing is, when you get to the actual game, the game is actually pretty decent.
Yeah,
And
it's not bad.
of all the Nintendo-related CDI games, Hotel Mario, for me, in my opinion, is the best. But it's more simplistic. They tried to not bite off more than they could chew. It's essentially, I do believe you have to like close doors on like level screens. You have to avoid things.
Now, John, let me ask you a question that I already know the answer to, but it'll further the conversation. Why are there Nintendo properties on a CDI console?
I do believe I'm going to get this wrong, but it's okay. Does anybody know?
I did.
Okay. Well, they had a side deal with Nintendo. They had like an agreement.
To develop the Super Nintendo CD.
Yes. And someone else didn't like that agreement too much.
Yeah, it didn't go well for them, and this was part of the fallout that they were allowed to use Nintendo characters for a few games.
So here you have Mario, and it's well animated, and essentially you are you're opening or closing doors, collecting coins. So you have to collect all three and then go up the elevator.
Yeah.
You go up the elevator, and you have to avoid the enemies.
How do you go up, actually?
Press up. Oh, down? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yeah, because that makes sense. And so you close the doors, and the goal is to avoid the enemies.
Can I jump?
You can jump. You can jump. You get to squish them. You should be able to. Oh, you're getting close. Grab the coin. Anyways, it's got even the, if you notice the font, even on the like the score and stuff, is very much like Super Mario World. Okay, there you go. Yep.
Yeah, keep in mind, one of the better games on the system.
Yeah.
So that should tell you kind of the quality that you should expect
So
when you delve into CDI.
So the other thing too that's important to know is that, and Chris and I were talking this before we came to this panel, it wasn't that powerful of a console. Yeah, with an extra cartridge and add on to the hardware, it could do full motion video. But really it was essentially 16-bit graphics with a better color palette.
Yeah.
And you know, that was a problem with a lot of the 90s consoles, is that they hadn't evolved gameplay style to next gen. They didn't have the power, the hardware power, unless it was like a high-end computer to do like gaming. Even that was so revolutionary. And there was games such as Starfighter, like on 3DO.
Right.
That was a little bit later. That was an example of an early 3D game that was done well, but you know, this was essentially more of a 16-bit style gameplay, pretty solid. And what you see is about, you know,
This is pretty much it.
Yeah.
And there's some more animated sequences, but the game doesn't really change.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on to the next one.
Okay, I'm going to show Kether. Who's seen Kether? Awesome.
I haven't seen together.
Okay.
So it'll be new for most of us.
Okay, so if you like to drink with your friends, or if you just want to, and so the question is you would, this game is cheap. This game doesn't make any sense. This game doesn't make sense whatsoever. And you can play it, and it's one of those things, who's watched a movie, and you're like 20 minutes in, you're like, I don't know who the good guys or bad guys are. I don't know what's going on. That's Kether. Kether is, I don't know what you were thinking. I don't know why this is released the way it is. It's even hard to explain. It's a strange, everything's strange. Oh, this thing's down there. Any questions so far? I can field some questions. This is pretty informal. We're just showing some strange stuff.
Who put this game out?
I don't remember.
I'm going to go for Philips Interactive.
What?
It doesn't say on the disc, like.
Oh, there we go.
This is down there. Yeah. I just essentially
Oh,
pulled.
it's an infogram.
Oh,
Infogrames means innovation.
And I'll be the first to admit, you know, I don't know everything. Like, you know, I just essentially pulled this out of my collection. It's been in a box for about 5 minutes.
New game.
It's French by default.
Okay, new game. So,
New game.
I am psyched.
Yeah. I want to thank Hans for helping us with this. So it's very abstract and futuristic, and you know, it has a stupid story and it talks forever about nothing. It really is like it talk. Raise your hand if you hate you watch a game and it's talking and talking and talking. It's like, just shut up. I just want to play the game. Well, if you hate that, you're gonna really hate this game.
This is giving me some serious like Lawnmower Man vibes.
Yeah, so it's very new age and out there, and essentially
That is the worst
You're-
render I've ever seen.
you're in space. I don't know. I mean, it's really out there. My friend John Rose showed me this game and says, I'll give you $5 if you can figure out what's going on in this game. And then I gave him $10 and said I never want to see this again.
And yet you thought to bring it to
Yep. So the first part is you're navigating this terrible, I do believe, asteroid field. And so it's got simple control, and you have your, your light speed. I love it how early games, like they made you, does this sound like VR? Let me see if this sounds like VR. It makes you mimic that you actually have control of something, and that you're in a 3D world, and it's supposed to make you feel like, you have control over what's going to happen. You're essentially moving a ship around, and you die. Yeah. Try that again. Yeah.
Try it again. It's like, why didn't I just stay in the booth?
So, essentially you're trying to solve these different puzzles through this alien, temples, and now you're avoiding this. Makes no sense.
Wait, so was dying a stage skip?
I'm not sure. Do I get the stars or?
I think you avoid everything. I think the icons, grab the icons. The little star thing. Hey, you made it.
Did you make it or
I
did
grabbed
you
a
lose?
star.
Yeah.
Okay.
You grabbed the Chaos Emerald.
Because that makes sense, right? Yeah.
You grab a star and then an asteroid explodes.
Okay.
Can you shoot?
No. That's too complicated. That wouldn't happen in this game.
The graphics of this really aren't bad. With the 3D rendering and everything.
Okay, grab that power up in you. That green orb. Yep, there's your shield. So that's your shield.
There's some Easter Island heads there.
So much purple.
Couldn't you just fly away from this stuff, like not on this planet?
Yeah, so it has has a pre-rendered background, so it makes you feel like you're able to avoid stuff, kinda. And it's just really a good example of early 3D technology that didn't work.
Yeah.
And it's so responsive.
They learned a lot of things not to do.
Right. Any questions so far? Yes, back there.
Was this before or after Starbucks?
Oh, good question.
I want to say before, I do believe Tether was an early game, and it did not sell. I mean, you can get this game cheap, and if you have a CDI, pick it up, have some fun, drink some beers with your friends, and figure out what's going on.
The CDI really is the beer drinking console, isn't it? That's the only way you're going to have a good time with it.
All right, this is a decent game. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I got a question. How much on average do you look to pay for a CDI?
I would say in working condition, with a controller, $100.
It really depends on the model you get.
Yeah.
The very large 220s that are about the size of an old Laserdisc player, they're more cheaper. So they're $50 with just a console. If you get a good controller like this one,
I'm doing better with
$150.
Yeah, this controller is like $50 to $80.
Yeah.
That's the one you want.
He is though.
And if you don't want it at all, just watch it on YouTube. Wait for me to upload a video and make fun of me.
That's how you win.
So seriously, I play better when I don't play at all.
Yeah.
That's a sign of true working technology. Yeah. I'm gonna set up with you up there. Oh yeah.
That's awful.
Let's give a hand for hand. Thank you.
Year is Star Fox.
Okay, one moment. We'll transfer up there. Does anybody?
I don't think the FX
We'll see one more, and then we'll be able to move forward. Any other questions I can field? Chris.
I really think they need to see video speedway because we've seen how good the CDI can be. We really need to go to the depths.
We
now.
just showed Tether though. Kether's terrible.
You've not seen Video Speedway though, have you, John?
I've seen it. I don't remember it though.
That's
what happened.
That's the
Blocked out
bleaching.
memories.
Yeah.
It's
All right.
it's
So
an experience.
okay. So all right. All right. So we got some technical
Where's
things.
therapist told them not to talk about it anymore?
All right. So let me share some facts about let me share some facts about the 90s. So okay.
Bill Cosby was funny back then.
While she's setting this up. So there was over 13 different major companies to release hardware in the 90s. And there was only 2 that made money. What 2? Yes.
Sony and Nintendo.
Okay. It started in the 90s. It was Sony. So the systems that came out in the 90s that made money.
No.
N64 did make money. That is one of them. And Sony's the other.
SNES did.
Well, I'm talking like next gen consoles. Okay. So like the ones that didn't sell, Apple Pippin, because that was a big seller. Okay. The Atari Jaguar CD, because a failed console add-on is a good idea. Okay. And then you got the Sega Saturn with the famous Saturn Day.
That made money in Japan though, didn't it? That did pretty well over there.
Yeah, I mean it did good, but not in the US.
Yeah.
Neo Geo CD. Okay. I know those Neo Geo fans will love them to death. TurboGrafx CD. Okay. Sega CD. Yeah. Just did a video with Metal Jesus on that, and Turbo Duo, which was the final swan song to NEC's terrible marketing plan in the U.S. But then we had weird stuff like the Panasonic 3DO, which actually, you would have thought was successful, and it wasn't at all.
Well, it's a weird model with the 3DO where the 3DO company would just license out the technology to Panasonic, LG, or Gold Star, and Sanyo, I believe, was the other one. The problem with that model is that we've been used to video game companies selling at a loss and then making up their profits on games and licensing fees for that. But with that model, somebody like Panasonic, they had to make all their profit with the console. Hence why the console started out at $700, later went to $5, and then, well, now you can get one for about 48 cents. Yeah, so it was a model that didn't work then, and I don't believe it's ever been tried since, for obvious reasons.
Then you had wonderful ideas like Pioneer Laser Active that.
Yeah, that I recently spent a bunch of money on.
But anyways, yeah, we're getting this figured out. If not, we'll just wing it. That's fine. Any other questions about the CDI?
I think we might be ready to just move on.
Okay, well, let's get on. So, I brought some other cool stuff. So, the next console that did make any money was the Nuon. And, all right, got it. So, this up here. We'll bring all this up here. Yeah, we got to bring this up here. Sorry about the technical issues.
So, the Nuon is half console and half DVD player. I think they saw what Sony was doing with the PlayStation 2 where they said, we got a game console, also it plays DVDs, and obviously had tremendous success. The Nuon's like, well, we've got a DVD player and also it plays games. I haven't checked the sales figures, but I don't think it was as successful as the PlayStation 2. John can
So the Nuon, the long story short of the Nuon, and again, the long story short of the Nuon is that some people from the Jaguar team thought it'd be a great idea to work and incorporate a technology that could be embedded into DVD players. The problem with that was that it was at a time in which people wanted cheaper DVD players. They didn't want the extra bells and whistles. And so everybody bought a PlayStation 2 for games, and it was a DVD player. And the problem is when the Nuon came out, it was like $500.
Yeah, it was expensive.
It was expensive.
Way more than the DVD player that was right next to it.
And so that was a problem. And we'll see if we get this out. I apologize, just technical issues here. We're trying to hook up a different console now, so Sorry.
And the Nuon didn't even come with many games. It didn't have very many.
It had 8,
Eight?
and one was
Yeah.
South Korean. So, and because it makes sense to have 8 games, one South Korean, and the only way to play the South Korean game is with the South Korean player.
Samsung won't do it?
And it's a region locked, and you can only play that game on it. So,
Is it worth going to South Korea, getting that Nuon for that game, John?
so we have this. This is the
I
next
bet on the
system.
exchange rate.
Yes. Okay, so that's my.
And probably the best game on the system is going to be Tempest.
Yeah. Who's seen Tempest on it? Who's seen a Nuon? Does anybody have any
Very
seizure
few.
issues? I'm being serious. Okay, so this is a very intense game done by Jeff Minter.
Yep.
And so some of the team from that worked on the Jaguar made some ports of games. They brought some similar games to the Nuon. The best game on the system was Tempest 3000.
That's 1,000 times better than
Yes.
the Jaguar.
And and of course, so here's the other wacky thing about the Nuon. The Nuon had 4 different controllers marketed for it.
And good luck finding any of them.
All the controllers had different features, and some games would play the best with the matching controller. That makes sense because there's seven games in the U.S. for it. Iron Soldier 3 being the hardest to get, and the Tetris. So there was 3 main models: the Samsung N2000, and the one you want is the one I brought is a Samsung N501 because it plays homebrew, and there is homebrew games. There's a great website called Nuon Dome, and they talk about homebrews. It hasn't been updated in a while, but it talks about all things Nuon. So if you like the obscure stuff, definitely check it out. It's worth doing. So, all right, let's see if we can get this going here. We got. All right.
You had it.
Yay!
Okay.
You say yay now.
I like this game.
No, Tempest is a good game. I do like Tempest. The other Nuon games, not so much.
All right.
Let's go over what are the other Nuon games. There's that
Space
one
Invaders.
Space Invaders.
XL. So the thing with the Nuon is it's not that interesting on a game standpoint, but it's interesting that they had the technology to incorporate a chip in a chip that the goal was to incorporate it in multiple DVD players and have it play games. And so I would say it's kind of like a precursor to something like the Amazon, these
Right.
stream boxes where it plays their media but also plays games but didn't primarily function as a primary game system. So that's what happened, and one of the best games was Tempest 3000. Please God load. It has long loading times, and so the other thing that they tried to market this was it had enhanced features on DVDs.
Right.
Guess how many
Only
DVDs
for
had
those
enhanced?
Nuon DVDs.
So Nuon Enhanced. How many Nuon Enhanced DVDs did they make?
0.
4. Okay, because the big sellers would be Dr. Dolittle 2, Bedazzled, Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton remake, and The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. Yep, and if you buy those DVDs, a little tiny icon says Nuon Enhanced. So here we go. It doesn't have the sound. I don't know.
I don't think she has it working.
Okay. I don't think.
Oh, we'll just
Okay.
talk over the video.
Okay, so there's a bunch of different features here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So there's a bunch of different features and stuff. Let's see, press per.
Have a go at
Good day, John.
Whoa.
Okay. So essentially, who's played Tempest, the arcade game?
Yeah.
Okay. It's just a better version of it. It's really psychedelic. done by a guy who's really psychedelic. And so you just go around blowing stuff up. You have super weapons, avoid everything, and then I die. So that's.
And then the game console died with you.
And so, yeah,
The
just
stakes
couldn't
are
handle
high
it.
with that.
Well, that's enough fun with the Nuon, I think. What else are we going to show? Like the Zuma clone?
All right, so we're having some technical difficulties. Any questions so far about some obscure consoles to collect? It's okay if you want to talk about further things. Questions?
Do you have a full Nuon collection?
Okay. Do I have a complete Nuon collection? Yes. So,
What year did the new one come out?
2000. So, again, it was competing with that early DVD technology. And that early DVD technology, people wanted cheaper DVD players. And, when you're $200 more than the PlayStation 2, nobody's going to care. Like, 2000 was a bad year to come out if you're not the PlayStation 2. Yes. Other questions?
When did it actually die?
2003. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was discontinued in 2003, but that's also interpreted as they sat on a ton of product that didn't sell. There's not official sales numbers for the Nuon. There was 3 American models. The Toshiba has the Tetris pack-in, and so each model had a different pack-in. So Ballistic is a silly puzzle.
That's the Zuma clone.
Yeah, and so Ballistic is a game. I'll show you Space Invaders if it's still working.
Do you have all 4 controllers?
No, they're super hard to get. So, long story short, nobody cared about the Nuon. Does this sound familiar? Nobody cared about the Nuon. It went away, and then someone did a YouTube video and it got real popular. And now the Nuon controllers, especially the best one is the Logitech. And the Logitech's the best one because it actually feels like a controller. It's kind of weird though. It has an analog stick on one side and a control pad, kind of like a Dreamcast. Yeah.
It looks very similar to the Logitech wireless ones they made for the PS2.
Yeah. So the other weird thing with the Nuon is on the N501 console itself, because oh yeah. All right. So the other weird thing is that the actual system to put in a controller, it had a little rubber insert that came in with the console, and you had to pop that out to put in a controller. And I'll tell you what, you never find these on the console. So if you're Goodwill hunting out there, check the DVD section and look for the Nuon symbol, because that's where I found all 6 of my Nuons.
6?
6.
Why?
Because I can. Yeah. So this is Space Invaders, and Space Invaders. I think this was, really trying to cater to the casual gamer, and so they came out with this thinking that, people that grew up with Atari would be interested in playing it on their Nuon. All 5 people that bought the system. So the cool thing is, and I don't have 2 controllers here, but there is a cool battle mode, and it's actually pretty awesome. It's a 2-player where you're battling someone on the opposite screen, battling each other. Pretty cool Space Invaders. So, but the problem with this game is I'll show you a classic overlay. It mimics, the arcade and color, and but this doesn't stream 128-bit. This was supposed to be, a 128-bit system.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a current console.
And you get to play Space Invaders. Yeah, and so it just doesn't work. And it doesn't work. It wasn't a good idea. Nobody bought it. Nobody cared.
It's interesting that they put enough thought into it to put 4 versions of Space Invaders on, but not, make a new game.
And there were some other title games that were supposed to come out and never did. But again, this is a terrible idea. It was a good idea on a gameplay sense, but not for the technology and not for $500. Any other questions?
How much did you pay for yours?
Well,
$12.99.
Yeah, $12.99 right there.
$12.99. Nuon players.
$13 well spent.
Yeah, Nuon players vary in price. I'm going to show you one other thing. I have an interactive sampler, and this shows some of the features in some of the gameplay footage of some other games. So I'll show you that. And then I also have games and demos, there is a homebrew for the Nuon, and the N501 is the only model that plays burn. You can download programs, burn them, and play them on this specific model, different stuff. And some of the homebrew stuff is it has an emulator for the Atari 800. Doom has like some Pac-Man clones and stuff. Pretty interesting.
I like homebrew games, and I like making homebrew games, but Nuon homebrew seems like the nichest of the niche markets that you could ever do.
No, laser rack. Oh, for homebrew, I guess.
Right, for
Sorry guys, this is gonna be kind of loud for a second. Should have audio.
Oh, sweet. Thank you for your help.
we'll go 3DO after this.
Yeah, go 3DO. Any questions about Nuon? I apologize for all the technical issues. Yes, sir.
Is there any South Korean homebrew?
Yes. Oh, South Korean homebrew? I know there's a South Korean game. I don't remember the name of it. It's pretty long. I'm sure there is. So if you go on Nuon Dome, they would have the answer. There's a forum there too that nobody goes to. But if you ask a good question, they might answer you in a year. So yeah. Any other questions? So, one thing about collecting obscure consoles is it's definitely for me. I love collecting the oddball. I kind of consider myself an oddball game collector, and it can be really challenging finding parts or finding especially with the prices going up and up. It's hard sometimes to justify, oh, that's $300 and it's terrible. So I would say of the three that I brought, three that we brought.
Nuon transforms any television into a state-of-the-art integrated entertainment center.
You're going to get the
A
full
Nuon enhanced
experience
DVD
now.
player is performance charged, providing new and improved features that make the movie viewing experience more exciting and engaging.
Are you excited?
Powerful graphic interfaces make it easy for anyone to use. A Nuon enhanced DVD player unlocks a variety of DVD bonus features currently available only on PCs with DVD-ROM drives. With Nuon, music comes to life. Plug in a CD and see the music. The Nuon Virtual Light Machine is sound at the speed of light.
Didn't they make something like this for PlayStation VR?
They did. Well, they had this as a loading screen for the Saturn.
Yeah. So this is like a visualizer, and Jeff Minker's very proud at taking credit for maybe where he made it.
Who would have thought that it would have been a great idea to plug a phonograph into a TV? Transports audio into the realm of the visual. And the fun doesn't stop there. The best software makers from around the world recognize the limitless possibilities of an advanced game platform capable of sophisticated graphics and incredible special effects. Internet connectivity and a diverse collection of add-on peripherals, and the Nuon enhanced DVD player transcends the role of just a movie player and becomes a total interactive entertainment system for the whole family.
Well, if that doesn't get you hyped for the Nuon.
So they made for the collectors that care. There's 3 different samplers. This is a sampler 2000. Free Fall was the worst of the games, I think, and so that's why I'm showing it. So Free Fall is essentially, you're moving a person falling down from, I don't know from where, avoiding stuff, and it was like more of a demo than anything else. And
The load time's on
yeah,
this
load
are
time's terrible.
Really not good.
Yeah. So anyways,
Press button to continue. Whoa.
so there we go.
You're supposed to avoid.
I can shoot, but I don't know what I'm shooting.
Oh yeah.
Apparently you know the answer. Oh, it's the first.
I don't know what's going on.
Thank you for the audio.
That about sums it up.
I'm
Anyways,
really glad I just did those spreads. That was really worth it.
so
I gotta say, I've seen better games.
yeah, so I think of the three that we brought, and we had a hard time locating the 3DO controller. So,
So we get to enjoy some intros.
yeah. So, of the three consoles we brought, I think for failed consoles, the best bang for your buck is the 3DO. And I give the 3DO a lot of credit. The 3DO to me was the true pioneer of modern gaming. I think PlayStation gets some of that credit when really the 3DO did it before, and it did it well. The problem with the 3DO,
$700.
it was $700, and so the plan for the 3DO was that Trip Hawkins.
Yes.
Trip Hawkins created the idea of the 3DO. He would sell this for different companies to produce their own 3DO machines, and then it was essentially the royalties of that, and he made out great. But the 3DO in itself did not do well. But there was several companies that made successful games on a 3DO. EA did do a Madden football that was, at the time, was revolutionary. Naughty Dog, who's heard of Naughty Dog? Naughty Dog did a terrible digitized fighting game called Way of the Warrior, which is on it. And so, so we're gonna get this set up. Any questions? Who's seen a 3DO? Okay. Okay, so we got some different games. We will showcase that. Thank you for your patience. I know it's not been that easy. Any questions I can field? Yes.
What is your guiltiest pleasure when it comes to the spirit game?
Oh, Bally Astrocade. Who started the Astrocade? So Bally Astrocade is one of my favorite. Now it's not a failed '90s console. You mean failed '90s console or just anything? The Bally Astrocade, hands down, is my favorite. My favorite obscure console to collect for. It's amazing, and in its own mind. I have some videos on my YouTube channel I've been doing a long time ago. They even have homebrew games for it.
Grab some 3DO discs.
Okay.
We got to move
Way
through
of the
these
Warrior?
pretty quick.
Okay.
Way of the Warrior, yes, that's
Way of the Warrior.
infamous.
Naughty Dog.
Naughty Dog, one of their first.
Not one of their first, but one of their first mainstream titles. They did
Probably their first hit, their first game that anybody cares about, knows about. This came out during the Mortal Kombat fanaticism, and is a direct ripoff. They said, it's got huge sprites and amazing graphics and sucks. But if you have a 3DO, it's one of the games that you should check out just because it was very popular at the time, very indicative of what they were trying to do with the system, just kind of take ideas and make them a bit better. It didn't always succeed. Got a good soundtrack if you like White Zombie. I think it's just the Los Exorcitos CD on it.
So, a little backstory. So, how they acquired some of the different actors in this game was on their college dorm, they asked some of their college buddies to be different fighters. And so, it's just pretty interesting how this came together. But yeah, this is their first, I would say, mainstream title. This actually got people excited about the 3DO.
Yeah, this was a big thing at the time.
Yeah,
This was the Street Fighter 2 killer.
the Mortal Kombat.
And the Mortal Kombat. Well, it's going to kill both of them.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, it's combining the greatness of Street Fighter 2 with the violence of Mortal Kombat.
I think that's actually how they built it for a while.
And instead the challenge to compete with the greatest warriors the world has ever known. The victor will gain entrance to the book of warriors and its
It's
name
actually
will
a
be known
very,
for
very
centuries to
complicated
come.
fighting game.
Although nobody knows where the book of fighting came, it is known that it is the complete compilation of the world's greatest competitors and their methods
Really
and
complicated to
their
play this.
Written by magic in the
If
blood
you
of
look at the
champions, the
controls
book is
online,
rejected
it's
from all
terrible.
history in a mountaintop citadel in the Himalayas. It is accurate to know that the world's strongest competitors fight in
Unfortunately, it's one that
spiritual.
just didn't work out.
Good and evil falls on their balls will compete once a century to compete under my watching eye. As the guardian of the book, I am devoted to the three true forms of nature: good, evil, and the pain caused by their eternal conflict. In an endless search for resolution to this struggle, I have yet again brought together the planet's greatest warriors, but for the last time.
For the book of fighting has but one empty page, and it is written that the way of this tournament winner will fill this page. Finished.
I'm so sorry. We were running a little bit over. And so, any quick questions? I'm so sorry. I want to respect the other panelists. And so, is there any questions that we can field while we set
Right
up?
back there.
Austin, if you're gonna buy a 3DO, what's the best model to get? Is it the Gold Star?
I like this one. The Gold Star is the one I would stay away from. And it's not that it's a bad console, but it's that the laser pickup in it is very hard to get.
Got it.
And they're obviously dying. I like this FC10. It's the simplest of the consoles. Pretty easy to find. They never break. So that's one I'd go with.
Any other questions? And then we'll thank you for coming. And again, please, just a quick thing, if you want to talk to me further, I'm in the Video Game Museum selling some homebrews and the exclusive to the show, Game Panic 2. Again, I want to thank and I want to respect the time schedule of the other panelists. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy day to come here. Also, but one other question.
You got a question?
I was just gonna ask when the 3DO came out.
93.
93, and the Craft Fest that you showed us before was 2000.
Amazing, huh?